Hey guys, tonight we step quietly into ancient Egypt, where the Nile glimmers beneath the first pale light of dawn. Mud brick houses are still cool from the night, and somewhere nearby someone is already sweeping dust from a doorway. The air smells of river mud, smoke, bread, and animals, while insects begin their daily buzzing before you've even properly opened your eyes. You are about to discover the ordinary side of a civilization famous for golden treasures, towering pyramids, and magnificent temples. Unfortunately, there are no luxury hotels waiting for you here, and you probably won't survive this. Or at least you may strongly reconsider your vacation choices by breakfast. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're settling in, tell me your location and your local time in the comments. It is always fascinating to imagine people listening from different corners of the world while we quietly travel thousands of years into the past. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake slowly, not because someone has gently prepared a comfortable bedroom for you, but because the morning is arriving whether you are ready for it or not. There is no alarm clock beside you. Instead, the changing light slips through small openings in the wall, and the sounds of the settlement gradually become impossible to ignore. A voice carries from outside. Someone is calling to a neighbor. A child is already awake. A donkey complains about something that probably has nothing to do with you. And somewhere close by, a bird makes enough noise to suggest that it has personally decided everyone should begin the day immediately. You lie still for another moment, hoping the morning might somehow become less demanding. It does not. You are living beside the Nile, in a society whose entire rhythm is shaped by the river and by the sun. The darkness has barely disappeared, yet the day's responsibilities are already waiting. There is water to collect, food to prepare, animals to tend, tools to gather, and work to begin. Your home is modest. The walls are made largely from mud brick, practical and surprisingly effective at keeping some of the worst heat outside. But comfort is relative, and you are beginning to understand that ancient comfort has very different standards from yours. There is no electric light, no refrigerator, no running water waiting behind a convenient metal tap, no soft mattress designed specifically to support your back, and certainly no button you can press to make the morning chores disappear. You sit up. The floor beneath you is hard. Your sleeping arrangement may consist of a simple mat, perhaps with a low wooden headrest or other basic support. The strange shape of that headrest takes some getting used to. Instead of sinking into a thick pillow, you are expected to rest your head on something that looks more like a small piece of furniture. You wonder how anyone sleeps comfortably on it. Then you remember that you have more immediate problems. Your mouth feels dry. The room is dusty. Something small moves near the edge of the wall. You decide not to investigate. That may be your first genuinely wise decision of the morning. You step outside, and the landscape slowly reveals itself. Ancient Egypt is often imagined through enormous monuments, golden masks, painted tombs, and dramatic desert landscapes. But most people do not begin their days standing beneath a pyramid admiring the sunrise. They live in ordinary communities, surrounded by fields, workshops, animals, storage spaces, and other houses. Life is practical. Almost everything has a purpose. The Nile is nearby, and its presence dominates everything. It is the reason this civilization can exist here at all. Its waters support crops, animals, transportation, fishing, and countless other activities. But the river does not simply provide everything automatically. People have to work constantly to transform its gifts into food and security. You watch someone carrying a container toward the water. You may soon be doing the same. Water collection is one of those tasks that sounds simple until you have to perform it repeatedly without modern plumbing. Every drink, every meal preparation, every cleaning task, and many other household needs depend on water being brought where it is needed. You start walking. The morning is still relatively pleasant, which is important because the sun will soon become much less forgiving. Your feet encounter dust and uneven ground. There is no smooth pavement stretching conveniently in every direction. You pass people already beginning their work. Some are preparing tools. Others are tending animals. Someone is handling baskets. Another person is preparing food. The settlement is waking as a single machine made of hundreds of small human tasks. And you are now one of the moving parts. This is the hidden misery of ancient daily life. Not necessarily one dramatic disaster, but the endless accumulation of small demands. Carry this. Clean that. Repair this. Prepare food. Fetch water. Check the animals. Work the field. Move the goods. Sweep the floor. Repeat tomorrow. Repeat the day after that. And again, you might imagine that living thousands of years ago would feel peaceful because there are fewer machines and fewer schedules. In reality, the absence of machines means your own body becomes part of the machinery. Your hands are tools. Your shoulders are transport equipment. Your legs are your vehicle. Your memory is your calendar. And your energy is one of your most valuable possessions. You look toward the Nile again. The water catches the growing sunlight, appearing calm and almost magical. For a moment, everything looks beautiful. Then someone hands you a container. The peaceful moment is over. You begin carrying water. The journey is not particularly dramatic. That is precisely the point. Ancient history is filled with kings, battles, temples, and monuments. But ordinary people spend much more time performing ordinary tasks. Their lives are shaped by repetition. You carry. You return. You pour. You go again. The container becomes heavier than you expected. Your shoulders begin to notice. Your arms complain. You start thinking about how convenient it would be if a pipe simply delivered water directly into your home. But there is no pipe. There is only you, the river, the container, and another trip. As the sun rises higher, the settlement grows louder. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Animals shift and call. People speak to one another. Tools scrape against wood and stone. The day is properly beginning now. And you are beginning to understand something important. Ancient Egypt was extraordinary. But extraordinary civilizations are built from ordinary people doing exhausting things every day. The pyramids did not rise because everyone lived like a pharaoh. The temples did not appear because daily life was luxurious. They existed because generations of people farmed, carried, built, cooked, cleaned, traded, repaired, raised children, and continued working even when their bodies were tired. You take another breath and look toward the fields beyond the houses. Soon, someone will be working there beneath the sun. Soon, food will need to be prepared. Soon, animals will need attention. Soon, another load will need carrying. And although the monuments may have survived for thousands of years, the people who built the world around them had to survive one ordinary day at a time. Your first morning has barely begun. You return from the Nile carrying water, and by now the sun has climbed high enough to remind you that the pleasant coolness of dawn was never going to last. The clay vessel rests against your side. It is heavier than it looked. You place it carefully inside the house and pause for a moment, hoping that this might be the end of your morning labor. It isn't. There is food to prepare. In ancient Egypt, the basic meal waiting for you is not a carefully arranged breakfast designed for photographs. It is practical food meant to keep people working. Bread is central, and beer is also an important part of everyday nourishment. These are not necessarily the exotic drinks you might imagine today. They are ordinary parts of the food system, prepared from grains and consumed as sources of calories and refreshment. You watch as grain is handled, processed, ground, mixed, and prepared. Every stage requires effort. Modern kitchens hide an astonishing amount of work behind machines. You simply buy flour. You turn a tap. You open an appliance. You set a timer. Then you wait. Here, there is no such waiting. The work begins with the grain itself. Someone has to obtain it. Someone has to store it. Someone has to grind it. Someone has to prepare the dough. Someone has to bake it. And someone has to clean everything afterward. You are beginning to understand why ancient people could spend so much of their lives doing tasks that seem tiny from a modern perspective. A single loaf of bread represents a chain of labor. You watch grain being ground with a stone tool. The movement is repetitive. Back and forth, back and forth. The sound is steady. It is not dramatic. It is simply tiring. You imagine doing it every day. The joke about ancient life being peaceful suddenly feels less convincing. Your shoulders would like to submit a formal complaint. Unfortunately, nobody in ancient Egypt has invented the complaint department. You keep watching. The grain becomes flour. The flour becomes dough. The dough becomes bread. It is a simple transformation, but behind it is an enormous amount of human effort. And this is one of the central truths of daily life in ancient Egypt. Food does not simply appear. It is produced through bodies. Your body, your family's bodies, your neighbors' bodies, the bodies of farmers, millers, bakers, transport workers, traders, and countless others. You sit down to eat. The bread is filling. It is probably coarse compared with the soft bread you may know today, but you are hungry enough that you do not care. There is also beer. You take a drink. It is not necessarily cold. There is no refrigerator waiting nearby. That small detail suddenly seems enormous. You have become accustomed to chilled drinks being available whenever you want them. Ancient Egypt offers you no such luxury. You drink what is available. You eat what has been prepared. And you continue with the day. There may be vegetables, dates, onions, fish, or other foods depending on where you live and what resources are available. Wealthier households have greater variety, while poorer people depend more heavily on basic staples. The difference between social classes becomes visible through food. A wealthy household can afford better ingredients, more servants, more storage, and greater variety. An ordinary worker has fewer choices. If the harvest is good, there is relief. If supplies are tight, the entire household notices. You look at the bread in your hand and realize that something so ordinary carries enormous importance. Bread is not merely breakfast. It is security. It represents grain successfully grown, harvested, transported, processed, and baked. If one part of that chain fails, your meal becomes uncertain. You continue eating. Outside, the settlement becomes louder. The heat is increasing. The smell of cooking smoke hangs in the air. Animals move through the streets. People carry baskets. Children run between buildings. Adults call to one another. The day is already busy. You finish your meal and begin cleaning. Again, there is no machine. There is no sink with hot running water. There is no convenient button that makes the dishes disappear. Clay vessels need attention. Cooking areas need cleaning. Food scraps must be dealt with. The floor collects dust. Everything has to be maintained manually. You sweep. You rinse. You carry. You put things away. Then you notice that someone else is already preparing another batch of food. Because feeding a household is not one task. It is a cycle. And cycles are everywhere in ancient life. The sun rises. Work begins. Food is prepared. Work continues. Food is eaten. Work continues again. The repetition is almost soothing when you stop thinking about how exhausting it would be. You begin to notice the smell of bread everywhere. Freshly baked loaves are carried through the settlement. Some are being stored. Others are being distributed. Food is moving from one pair of hands to another. You watch a worker receive a ration. Perhaps it is measured carefully. Perhaps it forms part of a larger system of wages or provisions. Ancient Egyptian society depends heavily on organized distribution. People need food, whether they are farmers, craftsmen, officials, laborers, or servants. The system has to keep moving. Grain must be collected, stored, counted, transported, distributed. It is almost like an enormous machine, except the machine is made of people. You look around. A farmer grows grain. A worker carries it. Another person processes it. Someone prepares the bread. Someone distributes it. And finally, someone like you eats it. Then the process begins again. You take another drink. For a moment you feel comfortable. Your stomach is no longer empty. The bread has given you energy. The morning light pours through the doorway. Outside, the Nile continues moving quietly. You might almost believe that life is manageable. Then someone reminds you that the fields are waiting. You stand. Of course they are. Food gives you the energy to work, and then the work is what helps produce more food. That circular relationship defines much of your existence. You cannot simply decide that you are tired and stop forever. The household depends on you. The community depends on the household. The entire agricultural system depends on thousands of people continuing to perform their roles. You step outside again. The sun is now strong. You look toward the fields. The green crops appear beautiful beside the dry desert. Ancient Egyptian civilization is often praised for this contrast. Green life beside golden sand, the Nile creating a narrow ribbon of fertility. But beauty does not mean ease. That fertile strip has to be cultivated. Fields must be prepared. Seeds must be planted. Crops must be protected. Harvest must be collected. Animals must be managed. And the timing matters. Too early. Too late. Too little water. Too much water. Everything depends on conditions you cannot fully control. You begin walking. Your breakfast is already becoming a memory. The bread has given you energy, but the energy is about to be spent. You pass another household where someone is grinding grain. The same sound follows you. Back and forth. Back and forth. The sound becomes part of the background of your life. You realize that if you lived here long enough, you might stop noticing it. That is perhaps the strangest thing about hardship. People become accustomed to it. What feels exhausting to you on the first day can become ordinary after years. The heavy container, the dusty floor, the grinding stone, the hot sun, the repetitive chores, the insects, the simple food. None of these has to be catastrophic individually. Together, they create a life that demands constant participation. You reach the edge of the fields. The Nile glitters behind you. The village is shrinking into the distance. Your stomach is full. Your hands are already tired. And the day is still young. You look at the land ahead and realize that breakfast was never the main event. It was simply fuel for whatever comes next. You walk toward the fields with the taste of bread still lingering in your mouth, and for a few moments you allow yourself to enjoy the view. The Nile moves beside you. The water is calm. Reeds sway gently near the edge. Beyond them, the land changes almost immediately. Green fields stretch along the river, while the desert begins where the reliable water ends. It is a strange landscape. Life and emptiness sit almost side by side. You understand why the river matters so much. Without it, the green fields would disappear. Without the fields, the villages would struggle. Without the villages, the civilization you have heard about would never have developed in quite the same way. The Nile is not simply a river. It is the reason you are here. And yet, living beside something so important does not mean you control it. You depend on the river every day. You drink its water. You use it for washing. You rely on it for crops. You travel along it. You fish in it. You transport goods by boat. You build your entire routine around its rhythm. But the river also demands respect. You approach the bank carefully. The water looks inviting beneath the growing sunlight, but you know that the river is not a swimming pool. Its currents can be unpredictable. Its banks can become muddy. Animals live in and around it. And water itself can become a problem when it is not handled carefully. You watch people collecting water. Some carry jars. Others use larger containers. The process is familiar now. You have already done it once today. You are beginning to understand how many trips are required simply to keep a household functioning. One trip for drinking, another for cooking, more for washing, more for animals. The river may be close, but water still has to move from the river to the house. And moving water is work. You look at your empty hands. You are grateful that someone else is carrying the next container. For now, a boat moves slowly along the river. This is another advantage of the Nile. Water is often an easier highway than land. Goods can be transported along the river. People can travel. Grain can move. Stone can be carried. Messages can travel between settlements. The river connects communities that would otherwise be separated by difficult terrain. You watch the boat disappear into the distance. For a moment you imagine being a passenger. Then you remember that travel in the ancient world is not a vacation. There are no comfortable seats designed for long journeys. No air conditioning, no smooth highway, no engine quietly doing all the work. Travel depends on wind, rowing, currents, animals, and human strength. The river is helpful, but it is not effortless. You continue along the bank. The sun climbs higher. The pleasant morning is fading. The air becomes warmer. You touch the soil. It is cool in places, damp in others. You understand immediately why farmers have depended on this land for generations. The river has delivered water and fertile material to the valley, creating conditions where crops can grow. But growing crops is not simply a matter of throwing seeds onto the ground and waiting. You have to prepare the soil. You have to plant. You have to protect. You have to harvest. You have to store. And you have to hope. Hope is an important part of farming, because you can work incredibly hard and still have no complete control over the result. You begin your task. The work is repetitive. Your hands move. Your back bends. Your feet remain planted in the soil. At first, you feel capable. Then you notice the heat. The sun has climbed higher. Your shoulders begin to tighten. Dust sticks to your skin. The simple movements become less simple after the 100th repetition. You think about modern farming. Machines can plow enormous fields. Machines can harvest crops. Machines can transport grain. Machines can process food. Here, your body does much of that work. You are the machine. And your body gets tired. You pause beneath a small patch of shade. There is not much shade. You look toward the river. The water is still moving. You wonder how many people have stood exactly where you are standing and looked at the same river. Farmers, children, merchants, fishermen, workers, travelers, officials, kings. Thousands of years separate you from them, yet the river remains. That continuity is remarkable. The landscape seems timeless, but daily life is not. Every generation must perform the work again. You return to the field. The Nile's importance becomes even clearer as the day continues. A nearby irrigation channel carries water toward crops. Someone has to maintain it. Someone has to clear debris. Someone has to make sure water reaches the right places. The river provides the possibility of agriculture, but people organize that possibility into a functioning system. This is another hidden burden. The Nile does not walk into your field and plant the crops for you. It gives you the conditions. You provide the labor. You continue working. Nearby, another worker carries a basket. Another uses a wooden tool. Someone else watches animals. The field becomes a quiet orchestra of repetitive movement. No dramatic music, no heroic speeches. Just work, and more work. You begin to appreciate how much patience ancient life required. Modern life encourages speed. Ancient life often demands repetition. You cannot rush a crop into existence. You cannot command the sun to move faster. You cannot ask the Nile to deliver water directly to your kitchen. You cannot order a donkey to become a truck. You simply continue. The hours pass. Eventually, you return toward the settlement. The river is still beside you. You stop for another drink. The water feels precious, not because it came from a beautifully packaged bottle, but because you have carried it, depended on it, and watched an entire civilization organize itself around it. You look across the Nile. On the far side, the desert glows under the sun. The contrast is almost unreal. Green fields, blue water, golden sand. It is beautiful, and it is dangerous. The desert reminds you that the fertile world is narrow. Step too far away from the river, and the environment changes dramatically. The Nile gives you a boundary between survival and difficulty. You return to the village. The afternoon is approaching. You have already carried water. You have eaten. You have worked. You have walked. And the day is still not finished. You realize something as you pass the familiar mud brick houses. The Nile may have made ancient Egypt possible, but it is human effort that keeps turning water into food, food into energy, and energy into another day's survival. The river keeps flowing. You keep working. And tomorrow, the same relationship will begin again. The afternoon sun is now high above you, and the fields no longer look quite as beautiful as they did in the morning. You have discovered the difference between looking at ancient Egyptian agriculture and actually working in it. From a distance, the green fields seem peaceful. Up close, they are demanding. You wipe dust from your hands and look across the rows of crops. There is still work to do. Of course there is. The soil must be turned. Plants must be tended. Water must reach the right places. Weeds must be dealt with. Harvest must eventually be collected and carried away. Every successful crop represents hundreds of small decisions and thousands of repeated movements. You bend down again. Your back complains. You ignore it. At least for now. The sun presses against your shoulders. Your linen clothing helps in the heat, but it does not make the heat disappear. Sweat gathers on your skin. Dust sticks to your legs. Your hands become rough from constant contact with tools, soil, rope, baskets, and whatever else the day requires. You begin to understand why physical strength matters so much in this world. There are no machines waiting to take over when your muscles become tired. The wooden tool in your hands is simple. It can help, but it cannot replace you. You pull it through the soil, again, and again, and again. The movement is almost hypnotic. If you stop thinking about the discomfort, the rhythm becomes strangely calming. Perhaps that is one reason repetitive work can become part of a person's identity. You are not simply doing a task. You are becoming the person who does that task every day. A farmer, a baker, a potter, a fisherman, a builder, a washer, a servant, a craftsman. Your work determines much of your daily rhythm, and your body slowly adapts to it. You continue working. Nearby, another farmer is tending crops. You exchange a few words. Neither of you has much energy for conversation. The sun is doing most of the talking. You glance upward. The sky is almost completely clear. Clouds are rare. Shade is precious. You move toward a small sheltered area when the opportunity appears. The relief is immediate. You sit down. For a few minutes, you do nothing. Nothing at all. That might sound insignificant. Here, it feels luxurious. You drink some water. You breathe. You listen. The distant sound of the river reaches you. Birds call from somewhere near the fields. A wooden tool scrapes against soil. Someone speaks in the distance. The wind moves gently across the crops. Then you notice the sweat cooling on your skin. For a moment, the world seems peaceful again. You almost forget that you are exhausted. Almost. Then you look at the field. It has barely changed. This is the cruel mathematics of agricultural labor. You can work for hours and still see an enormous amount of work remaining. A field does not care how tired you are. The crops do not pause because your shoulders hurt. The season continues. You stand again, back to work. You move toward another section of the field. The soil beneath your feet is uneven. Your sandals provide only limited protection. You begin to appreciate how much modern footwear does for your feet. Thick soles, cushioning, protection. Ancient footwear can be practical, but your feet are still exposed to heat, dust, sharp objects, and rough ground. You step carefully. A small stone presses into your foot. You keep going. Ancient life is full of tiny discomforts that modern people rarely notice. A rough floor, a hard bed, dust in the room, heat inside the house, cold water, smoke from cooking fires, insects, heavy loads, uneven roads. Every inconvenience is small. Together, they become the texture of everyday life. You continue through the field. The Nile remains nearby. Its presence is reassuring, but the river does not guarantee an easy harvest. The crops still depend on timing. You need water. You need suitable soil. You need seeds. You need labor. You need protection from pests. You need favorable weather, and you need the harvest to arrive before problems destroy the crop. You think about how strange it would feel to live with that uncertainty. Today, you can walk into a supermarket and see shelves filled with food from around the world. You may never think about where tomorrow's meal will come from. Here, food security is much more visible. You can see the fields. You can see the grain. You can see the river. You can see how much depends on the success of the season. A bad harvest is not merely an inconvenience. It can affect entire households. You keep working. The afternoon stretches on. The sun moves slowly across the sky. Your shadow changes position. Your body becomes heavier. You are tired in a way that modern sedentary life may make difficult to understand. It is not simply the tiredness of being sleepy. It is physical fatigue. Your muscles have been working. Your feet have been moving. Your hands have been gripping. Your back has been bending. Your shoulders have been carrying. And there is still more to do. You look toward the village. The building seems small from here. Smoke rises from cooking areas. A few animals move between the houses. The settlement looks peaceful. You know better now. Behind every doorway is another collection of chores. Someone is grinding grain. Someone is preparing food. Someone is cleaning. Someone is repairing clothing. Someone is caring for children. Someone is looking after animals. Someone is preparing tools for tomorrow. There is almost no such thing as completely finished. A household is a machine that requires constant maintenance. You return to the work. Eventually, the sun begins to soften. The heat is still present, but the worst of the afternoon has passed. You feel a little relief. The crops glow under the warmer light. The Nile reflects the changing sky. The landscape becomes beautiful again. You wonder whether this is what ancient farmers felt every evening. Exhaustion mixed with satisfaction. The knowledge that the day's work has contributed to something real. You may not have built a monument. You may never enter a royal palace. You may never see the inside of a grand tomb. But you have helped grow food. You have helped maintain the system. You have done what your household needs. That matters. As you gather your tools, your hands feel stiff. You look at them. They are dusty, perhaps scratched, perhaps calloused. These hands tell the story of your life better than any written record could. You walk back toward the village. The Nile is beside you. The river continues moving as if nothing has happened. It does not care that your back hurts. It does not care that you are hungry. It simply flows. And perhaps that is the most ancient thing about the entire experience. The river continues. The crops grow. The seasons change. People are born. People grow old. People work. And then another generation takes their place. You reach the edge of the settlement. Someone is carrying baskets home. Another person is leading an animal toward its shelter. A child runs across the dusty path. A woman calls from a doorway. The sounds of evening preparation are beginning. You have survived the fields, but the household still expects you. And as you step between the mud brick walls, you realize that ancient Egyptian daily life does not really have an ending. It simply changes from one kind of work to another. You step into the village as the afternoon light begins to soften, and the first thing you notice is the difference in temperature. Outside, the fields have been exposed to the sun for hours. Inside the mud brick home, the air is cooler, not cold, not comfortable in the modern sense, just cooler. The thick walls have absorbed some of the day's heat and helped keep the interior from becoming quite as harsh as the open fields. You are grateful for them. You lower your tools. Your shoulders relax. For the first time since morning, you feel as though the world might allow you to sit down. You do. The floor is hard. Of course it is. You shift your weight and try to find a comfortable position. Eventually you give up. Ancient comfort has limits. The house around you is simple. Mud brick walls. A few openings for light and air. Woven mats, clay vessels, storage containers, wooden objects, perhaps a low stool, perhaps a small headrest. There is nothing unnecessary. Every object has a purpose. You look around and imagine adding modern furniture. A sofa would be wonderful. A padded chair would be even better. A soft mattress would probably become your favorite possession in the entire house. But there is nowhere to plug in your imagination. There is no furniture store waiting around the corner. The household has to make use of what is available. And what is available is often made from local materials: mud, reeds, wood, stone, clay, plant fibers. These materials are useful, but they are not indestructible. Walls need maintenance. Roofs need attention. Objects break. Baskets wear out. Tools become damaged. A household never truly stops requiring repairs. You run your hand along the wall. The surface is rough. In places, small cracks have appeared. Someone will eventually have to repair them. Not today, perhaps, but soon. You begin to understand that maintaining a house is another form of labor. Modern buildings hide maintenance behind professionals, tools, machines, and services. Ancient households handle much more themselves. If something breaks, someone has to fix it. If a wall deteriorates, someone has to repair it. If a basket falls apart, someone has to replace or mend it. If a roof develops a problem, someone has to deal with it. Nothing is automatic. You sit near the doorway. Outside, sunlight stretches across the dusty street. A child runs past. A goat wanders after it. Someone calls from another house. A donkey makes an impatient sound. The village is never completely silent. Even when you are resting, life continues around you. The air inside carries the smell of dust, food, and smoke. Simply switch on an exhaust fan. Your eyes may sting. Your clothes may smell of smoke. The walls may become darkened over time. And yet fire is essential. It cooks food. It provides warmth when necessary. It supports crafts. It becomes part of daily household life. You look toward the cooking area. Someone is preparing the evening meal. There is movement. Clay vessels. Grain. Vegetables. Fuel. Hands working. Again, the same cycle. Food requires labor. The home requires labor. The body requires labor. Everything connects. You lean back against the wall. The surface is firm, very firm. You close your eyes. For a moment, you imagine sleeping. Then something brushes your arm. You open your eyes. Nothing. You look around. You suspect that the house contains more life than the people officially living in it. Insects have discovered your home. They do not care about social class. They do not care whether you are a farmer or a royal official. They simply want food, warmth, water, or somewhere to hide. A fly lands nearby. You wave it away. It returns. You wave again. It returns again. You begin to understand why ancient people developed so many strategies for dealing with pests. The insects are not an occasional nuisance. They are part of the environment. Flies around food, mosquitoes near water, lice in clothing and hair, small creatures moving through cracks in storage areas. You scratch your arm. You immediately regret thinking about it. You decide that perhaps ignorance is healthier. The house remains cool compared with the outside. But the heat has not disappeared. As evening approaches, the stored warmth of the walls slowly becomes noticeable. You understand why architecture matters so much. People have to work with the environment rather than simply shutting it out. Thick walls, small openings, shaded spaces, courtyards, roof areas. These are practical responses to heat. The house itself becomes a kind of climate control system. It is imperfect, but it works. You stand and move toward another part of the home. Your feet touch the woven mat. It is softer than the bare floor. You appreciate it immediately. This is how quickly your standards have changed. A simple woven mat now feels luxurious. You sit again. You look at the clay vessels arranged nearby. Some contain food. Some contain water. Some are used for storage. Clay is everywhere because it is practical. It can be shaped. It can be fired. It can hold liquids. It can preserve grains and other materials. But clay vessels can also break. One careless movement can turn a useful container into fragments. Then someone has to replace it. Another small task. Another small cost. Another reminder that everyday life is built from maintenance. You glance toward the sleeping area. The mat is waiting. The wooden headrest is waiting. You imagine lying down after the day you've had. It will not be the softest sleep of your life. But you are tired enough that perhaps it will be enough. You think about the idea of comfort. Today, comfort often means softness. Soft pillows. Soft mattresses. Soft chairs. Soft blankets. Ancient comfort may mean shade. Clean water. A breeze. A dry sleeping mat. A safe wall. A full stomach. A quiet evening. The definition changes depending on what you normally lack. You step outside again. The sun is lower now. The village looks warmer in the evening light. The mud brick walls glow softly. People are finishing their chores. Someone carries a basket. Someone calls to a child. Someone brings an animal inside. You watch the rhythm. Evening does not mean complete rest. It means a different set of tasks. Tools have to be stored. Animals need attention. Food needs preparation. Water may need to be moved. The house needs to be cleaned. Tomorrow's work needs to be considered. You realize that the day is not divided into work and leisure, as neatly as modern schedules often are. Work is woven through everything. Eating includes work. Sleeping depends on preparation. Travel depends on preparation. Keeping the home comfortable requires work. Even resting requires a safe place that someone has maintained. You sit near the doorway again. The air is finally beginning to cool. That feels wonderful. You hear the river in the distance. The sound is soft, steady. You close your eyes. For a few minutes, you simply listen. Then a mosquito buzzes near your ear. Your eyes open immediately. You wave it away. It disappears. You wait. Nothing. You relax. Then you hear it again. You sigh. Perhaps the ancient Egyptians had mastered many things. Architecture, agriculture, writing, mathematics, art, engineering, but they never quite managed to negotiate a permanent peace treaty with mosquitoes. You settle back onto the mat. The house is darkening. The day's heat is fading. The walls surround you. For all their imperfections, they are shelter. They protect you from wind. They provide shade. They create privacy. They give your family a place to sleep. And that matters. Because ancient daily life is not only a story of hardship, it is also a story of adaptation. People looked at a hot, dry environment and built homes that helped them survive it. They learned how to use mud, reeds, wood, and clay. They created spaces suited to their climate. They developed routines that made difficult conditions manageable. You lie down. The mat feels hard. The headrest feels strange. The air is warm. The mosquito is somewhere nearby. But you are inside. You are safe for the moment. And as darkness settles over the village, you begin to realize that tomorrow the house will need you again. The walls will still stand. The tools will still wait. The food will still need preparing. The river will still flow. And the cycle will begin once more. You settle deeper onto the woven mat, hoping that the quiet of evening will finally give you a break. It does not. There is a faint buzzing near your ear. You open one eye. Nothing. You close it again. The buzzing returns. You sit up. A tiny insect disappears into the darkness. You sigh. Ancient Egypt has many impressive achievements, but tonight you would gladly trade one monument for a reliable mosquito net. You lie down again. Then another insect lands somewhere on your arm. You brush it away. This is going to be a long night. The problem is not simply that insects exist. They are everywhere. They live around water. They gather near food. They hide in cracks. They move through clothing and bedding. They appear whenever conditions suit them. And ancient homes, despite being carefully adapted to the environment, cannot completely keep them out. You begin to understand why pest control is not a minor concern. It is part of daily life. Flies are especially persistent. Food attracts them. Cooking attracts them. Animals attract them. Waste attracts them. And once they find a useful source, they have little reason to leave. You watch one circle around the cooking area. Someone waves a cloth. The fly moves away. A few seconds later, it returns. The person waves again. The fly returns again. It is almost impressive. You begin to suspect that the fly has more patience than everyone in the household. But mosquitoes are worse in a different way. They thrive around wet areas, especially near the Nile and other water sources. You can hear one buzzing in the darkness. The sound is tiny, almost harmless. Yet once you notice it, your entire attention becomes focused on finding the source. You sit up again. You look around. Nothing. You wait. Silence. You lie down. Buzz. You sit up. Still nothing. You begin to understand a peculiar kind of ancient exhaustion. Not the exhaustion of carrying grain. Not the exhaustion of working under the sun. This is the exhaustion of being unable to completely control your surroundings. Modern homes create a strong barrier between you and nature. Windows can close tightly. Doors conceal. Screens can keep insects outside. Electric lights allow you to see. Fans move air. Air conditioning changes temperature. Vacuum cleaners remove dust. Cleaning products deal with many unwanted creatures. Ancient homes offer much less protection. Your house is part of the environment. The insects simply share it with you. You look at the walls. Tiny cracks provide hiding places. The roof has spaces. The doorway opens directly onto the outside. The floor collects dust. Food has to be stored carefully. Water containers must be protected. The boundary between indoors and outdoors is thin. You begin to appreciate how much effort cleanliness requires when the environment is constantly trying to undo it. Someone sweeps the floor. Dust returns. Someone cleans a vessel. Smoke settles. Someone stores food. Flies appear. Someone washes clothing. Dust finds it again. It is an endless battle. And there is another problem. Lice. They are not insects you can simply ignore. They can live in hair and clothing, spreading through close contact. Ancient people had methods of dealing with them, including grooming, washing, shaving, and various substances used to discourage pests. But without modern sanitation and insect control products, the problem can be persistent. You scratch your head. Immediately, you wish you hadn't thought about it. You look toward the sleeping mat. Now it seems suspicious. You know that the mat is probably fine. Probably. But ancient sleeping arrangements can collect dust, skin, hair, and other material over time. Cleaning bedding requires effort. You cannot simply toss everything into a washing machine. There is no machine. There is only water, labor, sunlight, and time. You imagine washing a large household's clothing and bedding by hand. The task sounds exhausting before you even begin. You sit outside for a moment. The night air is cooler. That helps. The Nile is nearby. You can hear faint sounds from the riverbank, but the water also supports countless forms of life. This is the contradiction. The river gives you everything. It also brings the environment that allows insects to flourish. The same landscape that makes agriculture possible creates conditions that make certain pests unavoidable. You watch the moonlight reflecting across the water. The scene is beautiful. The river looks peaceful. The reeds move gently. A breeze passes over your face. Then something lands on your shoulder. You brush it away without looking. You have learned. Do not investigate. Just keep moving. Insects are not merely annoying. Some can affect health. Mosquitoes can transmit diseases in many parts of the world, although the exact disease patterns in ancient Egypt are difficult to reconstruct with certainty. Flies can contaminate food. Parasites can spread through poor sanitation and contaminated water or food. Ancient people did not understand microorganisms in the modern scientific sense. They could observe patterns. They could notice that certain places or behaviors seemed associated with illness. They could develop practical habits, but they could not see bacteria or viruses. That invisible world remained hidden. You think about how strange that would be. You wash your hands because they look dirty. You clean a vessel because it smells unpleasant. You avoid spoiled food because it tastes wrong. But you cannot see the microscopic dangers that modern science has taught you to recognize. You simply live with uncertainty. The night becomes quieter. You return indoors. Someone has placed a small lamp nearby. Its flame flickers. The light reveals dust floating through the air. You watch the tiny particles drift. You suddenly realize how much is always moving around you. Dust, smoke, insects, hair, fibers, tiny pieces of the environment. Modern rooms can feel almost sealed from the outside world. This room does not. The outside world is everywhere. You lie down again. The mat is still hard. The air is still warm. You pull your linen covering closer. Another mosquito buzzes. You hold perfectly still. It passes. You wait. Nothing. Maybe you have one. For approximately 10 seconds. Then you hear it again. You stare into the darkness. You begin to wonder whether the mosquito is deliberately targeting you. Of course it isn't. But at 2,000 years in the past, your imagination is allowed to become dramatic. Eventually, you stop fighting. You close your eyes. The buzzing continues somewhere in the background. And strangely, after enough time, you begin to hear it as part of the night. The river, the insects, the distant animals, the occasional human voice, the soft movement of air. Ancient Egypt is alive, even when you are trying to sleep. That may be one of the most important differences between your world and this one. Modern life allows you to separate yourself from nature. Ancient life keeps you connected to it. The river determines your crops. The weather determines your comfort. The sun determines your schedule. Animals share your living spaces. Insects share your rooms. Dust follows you inside. Smoke follows you through the house. Nature is not something you visit. It is something you live inside. You finally begin to drift toward sleep. The buzzing becomes distant. Your body is tired enough to ignore it. Tomorrow, you will wake again. You will carry water. You will eat. You will work. You will clean. And somewhere around you, the insects will wake too. Because while you are trying to survive the ancient Egyptian day, they are simply living theirs. Morning returns before you feel completely ready for it. A pale strip of sunlight appears along the edge of the doorway, and slowly the darkness inside the house gives way to the soft colors of dawn. You sit up on the woven mat. Your body is stiff. Yesterday's work has not entirely left you. Your shoulders remember the fields, your hands remember the tools, your feet remember the dusty paths, and your mind remembers the mosquitoes. You rub your face and stand. Today, you begin to notice something you had overlooked before. Clothing. Your linen garment is light and practical. It allows air to move around your body, which matters greatly in this climate. But linen is not magical. It does not stop sweat. It does not stop dust. It does not prevent insects from finding you. And it certainly does not wash itself. You look at your clothing. It has collected the evidence of yesterday. Dust, sweat, smoke. The ordinary marks of labor. Someone will have to clean it. You begin wondering how much work is hidden inside the simple idea of wearing clean clothes. Today you may place clothing into a washing machine and walk away. The machine does the exhausting part. Ancient washing is different. Fabric must be carried to water. It must be soaked, scrubbed, rinsed, wringed, dried, and sometimes treated or repaired. Every step involves human effort. You walk toward the river with a bundle of linen. Other people are already there. The riverbank is becoming a working space. Some are collecting water. Some are washing. Some are preparing boats. Some are fishing. The Nile is busy even when it looks peaceful. You find a suitable place and begin washing. The first movement seems simple. You wet the cloth. Then you rub it. The fabric feels rough against your hands. You continue. Dust leaves the linen. Then you rinse. Then you scrub again. It is repetitive and tiring. You begin to appreciate clean clothing differently. Clean fabric is not simply a fashion choice. It can feel cooler against the skin. It can be more comfortable. It can reduce unpleasant smells. And in a society where appearance can matter, clean linen also carries social meaning. The wealthy can afford better materials and more help. Ordinary people have fewer resources. Clothing tells you something about status. Fine linen can be associated with wealth and high social position. Simpler garments are more practical for labor. You look around the riverbank. People are dressed according to their circumstances. Some garments are carefully arranged. Others are clearly designed for work. You return to washing. The water is cool. That feels wonderful in the heat. You rinse the cloth repeatedly. Then comes the difficult part, getting it dry. You spread it where sunlight and air can reach it. The sun that makes work exhausting is now useful. It dries your clothes. It warms the fabric. It helps reduce moisture. Ancient life often works this way. The same environment can create a problem and provide the solution. The sun is hot. The sun is also useful. The Nile can be dangerous. The Nile also provides water. The desert is harsh, but it helps preserve some things and provides materials. Nothing is completely simple. You return home. Your clean linen feels lighter. You put it on. For a moment, you feel refreshed. Then you notice your skin. It is dusty again. Of course it is. You have barely stepped outside. You begin thinking about bathing. Ancient Egyptians were known for valuing cleanliness, and bathing or washing was part of life, although routines differed according to social status, location, resources, and circumstances. You walk toward the water again. This time, you want to wash yourself. The Nile is busy. You find a suitable area. The water feels cool against your skin. You rinse away the sweat and dust. For a few moments, you feel completely different. This is one of the rare luxuries that costs almost nothing except effort. Water is refreshing. You wash your arms, your face, your legs. You rinse your hair. Then you remember that clean water is not always perfectly clean water. The river is a living environment. People use it. Animals use it. Boats move through it. Mud collects along its edges. You cannot assume that every drop is perfectly safe by modern standards. Still, the relief is real. You step back onto the riverbank. You feel cleaner. You also feel cooler. You dry yourself as best you can. Then you begin grooming. Personal appearance matters. Hair needs attention. Beards may be trimmed. People may use oils or perfumes. Cosmetics can be important, especially among wealthier households. But grooming is not only about vanity. In a hot and dusty environment, caring for your skin and hair can be practical. You notice someone applying oil. The smell is pleasant. The skin looks smooth. The oil can help protect against dryness. You wonder how quickly your own skin would become dry and irritated if you spent every day under the Egyptian sun. You look at your hands. They are rough. Your palms show the work you have done. No amount of perfume can hide the fact that you spend your days lifting, carrying, digging, grinding, and cleaning. Still, grooming offers a small sense of control. The world around you is difficult to control. You cannot control the sun. You cannot control the river. You cannot control insects. You can control the harvest. But you can wash your face. You can comb your hair. You can clean your clothing. You can apply oil. You can make yourself feel presentable. That matters. You return to the house. Inside, someone is arranging freshly washed garments. The room smells different. Cleaner. Calmer. You sit down. Your body feels refreshed. But your work is not finished. The clothes need folding. The household needs preparing. The water jars need filling. The floor needs sweeping. You realize that cleanliness itself is labor. The cleaner your home becomes, the more work someone has done. This is easy to forget in a modern world where cleanliness can be automated. A washing machine, a vacuum cleaner, a dishwasher, a shower with endless running water, soap from a dispenser, hot water appearing instantly. Ancient Egyptians have none of these conveniences, yet they still value cleanliness. That is perhaps what makes the comparison so interesting. The desire for cleanliness is ancient. The technology is what changes. You look at your hands, they are cleaner now. But your nails still hold traces of soil. You wash them again, then you laugh quietly. You have spent much of the morning cleaning yourself after cleaning your clothes. And now you will probably get dusty again. It is an endless cycle, but it is also ordinary. You begin to understand that ancient people did not walk around permanently dirty, simply because modern plumbing did not exist. They developed routines. They used available water. They washed. They groomed. They cared about appearance. They found practical ways to stay comfortable. The difference is that these things required much more effort. You stand near the doorway. The sun has risen higher. Your freshly washed linen is already beginning to collect dust. You stare at it. You decide not to think about that. Instead, you look toward the Nile. The river is shining. People are already returning to work. The village is becoming busy. You have cleaned your clothes. You have washed your body. You have groomed yourself. And now the ancient Egyptian day is ready to demand your energy again. You leave the riverbank just as the village becomes fully awake, carrying the uncomfortable knowledge that cleanliness in ancient Egypt is not something you simply achieve once and forget. It is something you maintain, and maintenance follows you everywhere. Your clean linen is already collecting dust. Your freshly washed skin is already warming beneath the rising sun. Your hair feels neat for perhaps a few minutes, then the day begins again. You walk through the narrow village street. The ground beneath your feet is dry and uneven. Mud brick walls rise on both sides. Some doorways are shaded, others are already catching the morning light. You hear voices from inside the homes. Children are waking. Animals are being moved. Food is being prepared. Someone is grinding grain. The sound is rhythmic, heavy, slow. You follow it. Inside one household, a woman is turning grain into flour. The process looks simple until you realize how long it takes. Grain must first be gathered, then cleaned, then ground. The grinding stone is not going to do the work by itself. Someone has to push it again and again and again. You watch the movement. The stone moves across the surface with a steady scraping sound. It is almost peaceful, almost. Then you imagine doing it every day. Your arms begin to feel tired just thinking about it. This is another hidden misery of ancient daily life. Food does not begin when you sit down to eat. Food begins much earlier. It begins in the field. It continues during harvesting, then storage, then preparation, then grinding, then cooking, then cleaning. A single meal can represent hours of labor. You look at a small piece of bread. It seems almost absurd that something so ordinary could require so much effort. But that is the reality of a world without modern food processing. There is no factory producing flour while you sleep. There is no supermarket aisle filled with neatly packaged grain. There is no electric mixer, no food processor, no automatic oven. The household itself is the processing system, and the people inside it are the machinery. You step closer. The grinding stone is heavy. The movement is repetitive. Dust from the grain rises into the air. You can smell the grain. You can hear the scraping. You can feel the heat inside the room. The worker continues. She has probably done this countless times. Her movements are efficient. You would be clumsy. You would push too hard, then too softly. You would probably get tired quickly, and someone would have to explain what you were doing wrong. You smile to yourself. Modern muscles are not necessarily prepared for ancient routines. You move away. Outside, another household is preparing food. A clay vessel sits near a cooking fire. Someone is mixing ingredients. Someone else is arranging fuel. The work is coordinated. You begin noticing how many household tasks happen simultaneously. One person grinds. Another cooks. Another carries water. Another watches children. Another handles animals. Another repairs something. The household is a small economy. Everyone contributes. And because resources are limited, waste matters. A broken tool cannot simply be replaced instantly. A damaged basket needs repair. Food cannot be thrown away casually. Water cannot be wasted. Fuel requires effort to collect. Everything has a value, because everything requires labor. You walk toward the edge of the village. A donkey is being loaded with baskets. The animal stands patiently while someone adjusts the ropes. The baskets contain supplies. Perhaps grain, perhaps vegetables, perhaps household materials. You watch the rope being tightened. It is another example of invisible work. The basket has to be made. The rope has to be prepared. The animal has to be fed. The load has to be balanced. Someone has to guide it. Transport is not simply movement. It is a system. You continue walking. A child passes carrying a small container. The child moves carefully. The vessel is valuable. Drop it, and the household loses something useful. The child reaches a doorway and disappears inside. You hear laughter. For a moment, the village feels less like a place of hardship and more like a normal human community. People are not thinking about history. They are thinking about breakfast. They are thinking about work. They are thinking about family. They are thinking about what needs to happen next. That is perhaps the strangest part of stepping into the past. The people around you do not know they are living in ancient Egypt. To them, this is simply life. You continue toward the market area. The street becomes busier. People carry baskets. Vendors arrange goods. Animals move through the crowd. Voices overlap. You smell food. Fresh bread. Cooked grain. Vegetables. Fish. Spices and herbs. The smells are mixed together with dust and smoke. You begin to feel hungry. Then you remember that food is not free. You need something to exchange. Something you have produced. Something you have earned. Something your household can spare. The ancient economy does not operate like the modern one you are used to. Money exists in various forms and systems, but everyday exchange can involve goods, labor, measured quantities, and obligations. You look around. A person offers produce. Another offers pottery. Another has fish. Another has cloth. The market is not just a place to buy things. It is a place where different kinds of labor meet. The farmer's work meets the potter's. The fisherman's work meets the baker's. The weaver's work meets the farmer's. Everyone depends on someone else. You notice the pottery first. Clay vessels are stacked carefully. Large jars. Small bowls. Containers for food. Containers for water. Containers for storage. They are practical objects, but some are beautifully made. Ancient Egyptian craftsmanship can be remarkably sophisticated. You run your fingers near the surface of one vessel. Smooth. Hard. Cool. Someone spent time making it. You wonder what happens if it breaks. The answer is obvious. You buy another, but if you are poor, replacing household objects may not be easy. A broken jar can become a genuine inconvenience. You move farther through the market. The crowd is thickening. The sun is climbing. You can already feel the heat returning. You look for shade. There is some beneath a simple awning. You stand there briefly. A vendor speaks to someone nearby. A child is bargaining over something small. An animal nudges a basket. Someone laughs. Someone complains. Someone calls out the quality of their goods. It sounds surprisingly familiar. Thousands of years disappear for a moment. Human beings still advertise. They still negotiate. They still complain about prices. They still want good food. They still worry about what they can afford. The technologies change. The human behavior does not. You leave the market. The village street leads toward the river again. You stop beside a wall. Your feet hurt. Your hands feel tired. And it is not even midday. You look at the people around you. Nobody seems surprised by the effort. This is normal. That realization is more unsettling than the hardship itself. You have been imagining ancient life as an extreme survival challenge. But for the people who lived it, the routines were ordinary. They knew how to do these things. They had grown up with them. Their bodies adapted. Their skills developed. Their expectations were different. You are the outsider. You are the one who finds everything exhausting. You are the one searching for shortcuts. You are the one wondering where the nearest comfortable chair is. There isn't one. You laugh quietly. Then your stomach reminds you that breakfast would probably be a good idea. You return toward the house. The grinding continues. The cooking continues. The sweeping continues. The carrying continues. The village has entered another ordinary morning. And as you step inside, you realize something important. The greatest hardship of ancient Egyptian daily life is not one terrible event. It is the accumulation of small demands. Every task requires time. Every task requires effort. Every object requires maintenance. Every meal requires preparation. Every clean garment requires washing. Every drink of water requires someone to collect it. Nothing is effortless. And that is what makes the ordinary day so exhausting. You sit down for a moment. The floor is hard beneath you. You look at the small meal waiting nearby. It is simple, but now you see the invisible work behind it. The field, the harvest, the grinding, the cooking, the cleaning, the care.